And this is the second backers meeting, starting just a few minutes late due to technical challenges of the 21st century. But we're here with some of our backers, some of our team. So I'm Marc Zicree. And so if you want to introduce yourself.
Eric Nyquist.
Yay.
Jerry Dixon. You can call me Captain Dixon.
I'm Dave Edison. I'm the editor.
Yeah, Dave's our wonderful, wonderful editor. All the videos you've been seeing, Dave has been the one assembling them.
I got two wonderfuls.
Great. Terrific.
Jonathan Schiefer.
Great. And this is, of course, EJ, our great EJ. And so we're basically here to talk about where we stand with Space Command and field questions from anyone who's here or anyone out in the wonderful wider world. So basically, one thing I'm going to be talking about, obviously, is that we have one more week in our campaign. We end next Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific time, midnight Eastern time. We're going to have a big party at Comic-Con, and it's going to have live streaming where people can watch it from anywhere in the world. You can be part of the party. We're going to have a great panel at Comic-Con on Friday night, so we're going to do our best to let you guys be part of that as well. Of course, anyone who comes down to Comic-Con can come to our party, can come to the panels. We're doing 3 signings. That's I'm holding up 4 fingers. 3 signings, and many of our Space Command team will be there at the signings. Ian McCaig, who's our wonderful designer from Star Wars and John Carter and the Avengers and Harry Potter, will be signing with us. Doug Jones will be on the panel. Many of our actors and designers and so forth. So it's going to be an amazing, amazing time. And Doug Jones just sent me an email this morning because I sent him one of the scenes of the character he's playing in Space Command, and he loved it. And I sent him one of Ian's designs for the character. It's a character named Dor Nevin, who's what we call a synthetic. He's an android. And it's just going to be great fun. So I don't know if any of you guys have any questions or anything you want to know about Space Command or anything else. I can advise you on your love life or whatever, but happy to do that. And but if any questions come up, anything you guys would like to know, we're building stuff, and it's just.
I would like to see the sets if that would be possible sometime.
Sure. Well, it's funny because we're both building physical sets, practicals, and we're also building CG sets. And of course, Doug Drexler is working with a great team, Andy Probert and a number of others to design. We're building spacesuits, we're building sets, exteriors, interiors, all sorts of stuff. And it's that whole issue of what's going to be green screen, what's going to be a real set. We're going to be dealing with set extensions. I've been Skyping with Neil Johnson often. Every day. He's in the UK at the moment. But it just continues to build. Yesterday I was at PopCon, which is a popular culture convention. It's a curious meld of stand-up comics and rock and roll bands and science fiction things. And I met 3 actors that I actually like very much. Dean Haglund from X-Files, James Hong, whom I've met before from Blade Runner and Big Trouble in Little China, and Sybil Danning, who has her own huge cult following, of course. And I'd love to have all of. I mean, the thing is, the great thing about Space Command is you meet these wonderful people and you can just say, let's find something for you to do. Let's find a role for you. So Dean Haglund, who played one of the lone gunmen in X-Files, is aboard. He's going to be part of Space Command. I've reached out to James Hong. We'll see if we can make that happen. I'd love James Hong to be aboard. And Sybil Danning, we'll find something interesting for her to do too. So it's going to be quite fun. So. And I don't know, I guess, EJ, you're on the thing with any of the questions that are going to be coming in and any of that. Yeah. And so anything you guys want to say, or if you have comments, I'm welcome to.
These don't have to be major time commitments, but they can just
yes.
Juicy roles and
well,
more
that's
than guest appearances, more than cameos. But
yes.
But
well, the trick is giving them moments, really cool moments, and having fun things for them to do. And
it's a good thing you're a specialist in that.
Well, the fun part is sometimes what you'll do is you'll look at what they've done and say, okay, what haven't they done that's going to be really interesting, or expand their bag of tricks. Or sometimes it's like something they've done gives you an idea where it's like, oh, this could be very interesting to expand upon that or extrapolate, or their range. Like, for instance, with Armin Shimmerman, I always find a role for him in everything I do. And so in this case, he's playing quite a I was going to say, he's a big character. He's got quite a lot of drive, and this is one of his darker characters. It's not sometimes I have him play heroic characters, sometimes darker, and this is definitely a darker character. But and then yeah.
I was just saying a little bit.
Yeah. So. But and then also the other thing is with Dean Haglund, I'll look at his work, and not just X-Files, but other things he's done. It just kind of primes the pump, and it's very funny because when I was sitting down with Ian McCaig sent his first several dozen sketches of the characters, and we were talking about the different characters and the different roles and who might be really great for some of the roles, and plugging them in. Because Bill Mummy's going to be a part of this, so we're saying, okay, what can he play? And Amber Benson, and then I met Clancy Brown at the Saturn Awards last year, and I love his work, and so I have to reach out to him because I have a role I'd very much like him to play, and you know, and I'll, you know, and I'm up for the Saturn Award again this year, so we'll see, you know, who I meet there and can bring them into the fold. So you know, it just keeps getting better and better, you know, every day. So, you know, it's funny because we also have the talent search going, you know, the Space Command talent search. So if you want to play one of our 2 leads, you can actually audition for it. We just put out the word and we got 2,000 submissions instantly.
Really?
Only
Instantly,
2,000?
yeah. And but somewhere in there is going to be someone where we just go, wow, great, you know. And so it's, you know, it's really nice to know that so many people want to be part of this journey, you know, and so I'm really glad of that. So, you know, and you're a new arrival to the. so how did you find out about Space Commander? How did it come into your?
I'd been watching the campaign for a while. It was pretty interesting stuff you guys were doing.
Yeah.
But I actually backed the campaign because of your Film Courage interview, and I saw you just seemed like a really cool guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
with a illustrious background.
Well, I'm glad I can fake being a cool guy. That's a good skill. I mean, one of the things I've really enjoyed doing is all these different interviews, you know, with and we're doing the Wall Street Journal tomorrow. That's going to be interesting. So I'll you know, flash a big wad of cash. You know, it's the Wall Street Journal. I say, oh, money! I love money. You know, you know, I mean,
He never sleeps.
yeah, no, but it dozes. It dozes.
Yeah.
But it takes little cat naps. But you know, with each, but the fun part is with each interview, it's sometimes I'm talking to science fiction sites or whatever, and then I'll talk about, you know, writing for, you know, real Ghostbusters or whatever. But you know, with Film Courage, I'm also cognizant that a lot of people want careers in the industry, you know, and I'm happy to advise with that because, you know, it's a different landscape now thanks to editing software on computers and digital cameras and all of that. You don't have to be in the studio world, you know, you can be, but.
We do have a quick.
We have a question. Uh-oh,
We have
look
a
out.
question. Bum, bum, bum.
Yikes.
Is there a cutoff date for the talent search, and will we see the winning auditions?
Yes, our plan is not just the winning auditions. We're actually planning to put many of these tapes, these auditions on the Kickstarter, on the Space Command site, so our backers can actually watch them and vote on them. So there'll be a winnowing down process, and then people can watch the ones that are, you know, in the ballpark, and it's going to be quite great. And then once we get the votes tallied, so basically people will be able to do these tapes into August, I think, you know, into probably early August. We'll announce the cutoff date, so no one misses out, you know. And then also I've been taught. It's funny because I've been getting people asking me, well, if they don't fit, you know, Cadet Bradbury or Commander Kemmer, what can they do? And I'm going to be writing some scenes for a character called Other, and it'll be, you know, so anyone who doesn't fit that can audition for this, and I'll put that character in, you know. It's
Those will be the actors with the wrong colored jersey.
yes, the red shirts, and but you know, but the fun part is because it's a series of films and a series of shorter half-hour episodes. There's a big canvas, so you know, I've written most of the first script, and I know what those roles are and who those characters are, and you're in the right place, absolutely. And hi, and but you know, but again, as I meet new actors or people whose work I really admire, then it's like, oh, okay, let's see what I can give them. And we've also been talking about a new offering. We're going to have where if people want to, for the backers or for fans, if they want to be part, we're going to offer a reward where if people want to be in a mass death scene, right? The massacre on Saturn Prime, they can be in that death scene, and they'll have their own, you know, like pit crew Space Command shirt for that scene, which they'll get to keep. And for people who can't come to LA, we'll have a walk and talk through the, you know, the Space Command Hall of Heroes with all these framed pictures. And so people can send us their photos, and we'll put them in Space Command uniforms and put them up on the wall. And so they'll get to be in that scene, and then we'll send them their photo back, you know, with a certificate of authenticity. And you know, so I think that's going to be very fun because my whole idea with this whole thing is that people can be part of it, that it's all of us together. So that's going to be great. Yeah.
And we have had another question.
Uh-oh, look out.
Bum, bum, bum. How can people be a part of it? How do they sign up? How do they pitch in?
Yeah, well, the first part, of course, is if people can pledge at spacecommandmovie.com, that's gratefully accepted and gratefully appreciated, because obviously the more money we have to make this, the more the train runs on smooth tracks. You know, it's, I mean, we're going to get it made and get it made well no matter what. We're now at a point where we can make the first film, But obviously every little bit helps, and then we're going to finance the half-hour vignettes. We're going to finance the films 2, 3, 4, and onward, because it's a big canvas. The story covers 2 centuries through the viewpoint of these 2 families, the Kemmer family and the Sikander family. But beyond that, beyond pledging, also obviously if you have wealthy relatives who are looking to to do something useful with their cash. But beyond that, you're running the Space Cadet program, EJ, and that's a program where if you're a science fiction fan, you can be part of the Space Cadet program and be a sort of our advocate, our diplomat out into the larger world. It's not like being a salesman. It's basically just spreading word so people can know what we're doing. And I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Anyone could do that.
Yeah.
Just tweet.
Yeah,
post,
you're 100%
share.
right.
So where do they go to find out about the Space Cadet program?
Well, you can go to spacecadetprogram.wordpress.com,
Yeah.
or you can just email me at spacecommandcadet@gmail.com.
Wow,
Say
great.
those again?
Say those again.
Space Cadet Program at .wordpress.com or
Spacecommandprogram.wordpress.com.
Yes.
Got it. Or email me at spacecommandcadet@gmail.com.
Great. And also I should mention that our Kickstarter page, the way to get to that is spacecommandmovie.com, and then that'll also allow you to click through to our website, which is pledgespacecommand.com. And we're putting up tons of videos, tons of artwork, a lot of stuff about building the spacesuit, building the sets, all of that is there. And also one thing I did, there are 2 things I have going on the website, which is one is a lot of videos about different shows I wrote for. So there's actually a video of me and Armin Shimmerman talking about working together on Far Beyond the Stars on Deep Space Nine, and I talk about writing for a lot of the shows I've written for, Sliders and Smurfs and all of those, Real Ghostbusters and Super Friends and He-Man and Friday the 13th, the series. But
Basically all the stuff I grew up with.
all the stuff you grew up on, yes. And but also there's videos on how to have a career in the industry. It's something I call the 1-minute film school. So you can watch me talking about that, and Guillermo del Toro, and a lot of the people I know and have worked with. Neil Gaiman as well we have him talking about that.
There's one with Neil Gaiman?
Yeah, talking about how to have a career in the
There's two
industry.
with Neil Gaiman.
There's 2. Well, yeah, you cut him.
There's 2 with Neil Gaiman?
Wow, yes. And also.
This is the editor right here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Like you.
That's right. Well, Neil's a great guy, and one thing that's really fun is that so many of my friends in the industry are happy to put out the word about Space Command. So Brandon Braga did a video for us, which is quite fun because we're at the gym, working out, and Brandon is going to be talking to some of the people he's working with, which is terrific, and so there's a great ripple effect, which I really love.
These are all industry people who are talking about something that's done outside of the studio
Yes,
system.
and they don't look down on it. They view it as on an equal footing with what they're doing. There's no quality of this being a lesser product or something just kind of on the fringe. No, because the people who are doing big TV shows, big features, they understand that it's totally permeable now. It's about who can step up with quality. And again, for those who haven't looked at World Enough in Time, which is the Star Trek New Voyages episode that I did with George Takei, you can go on to spacecommandmovie.com, you can click through and watch that entire episode. And that's, if anything, I think is a proof of concept for what we're doing with Space Command, it's that, because I did that without a studio or a network, and it came out great. It's.
And you get to see Christina Moses.
She's quite wonderful. Christina Moses will be on our panel at Comic-Con, as will Doug Drexler, as will Ian McCaig, as will Doug Jones, and also Catherine McEwen, who's our wonderful actress who's playing Odara Talin in Space Command, and we're designing that character now as well. Ian is.
Great video about with Ian and you talking to her about
Yes.
Have you seen that?
I love that. Well, but this is also why I love the collaborative quality of working in film and TV, because it's funny because there's 2 different ways of running a show or running a movie. One is
Into the ground.
Yes, that's right, into the ground, exactly.
Which we doing here. We'll take
Yes,
care of
exactly. But it's.
3 ways.
But the one way is where you invite everyone in collaboratively, and there's clearly someone who's sort of at the who's making the decisions at the top of the food chain, so that it all works. But you're saying, okay, if someone has a great idea, you're open to it, versus the autocrats who are like kind of ruling at the top through fear and terror, and no one's allowed to have a suggestion other than them. And that's a terrible way to run. And it's funny because with TV shows, it's about half and half. Some shows have this great collaborative quality, and some have this other thing where it's like, the writers aren't allowed on the set, things like that. And so it varies. And you can get great shows either way, but one way is a lot more fun, so, and,
Well, the process is
yeah.
changing over time. Back in the
Yes.
day, I did a lot of film,
Yeah.
as you may recall. However, you can't edit what isn't shot.
Yes.
You can't shoot what isn't funded.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
So it's a process.
Yes.
And,
And we should mention that you worked on Dark Star, that you're a camera guy, DP guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and worked on
Yeah.
Dark Star and Next Gen, tons of films and TV shows.
I still have a valued photo of myself on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah, those are great. I love those sets. Those were so much
I
fun.
also worked on The Godfather.
Wow.
I did all of the NBC Movie of the Week. I did every one of the location shots on the Streets of San Francisco TV
Wow,
series.
that's great.
I did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when I was much, much younger.
but
I'd like to
yeah,
say
go ahead.
that at this point, though, you can sometimes edit stuff that wasn't shot.
Yes, you can.
Now
If
we
you're
can.
if you're very adroit, yes, exactly. It's fascinating because the eye, you learn when you're cutting what the eye will follow. So sometimes you can even take a close shot from a completely different scene, and the eye will just accept it.
Nothing
It's
is
great.
scrap until it doesn't
Yeah.
end up in the final movie.
And another thing that's very, very useful is the moments before and after the take starts on the actor. Because sometimes they have a very relaxed, thoughtful expression, or you'll just grab this really great moment that you can actually use in the piece. And it was funny, when we were editing World Enough in Time, there was this great moment in the turbo lift where Christina Moses says a line, and then Kirk hears it, and he turns, and he's considering, and then he speaks. And originally, when we shot the scene, we didn't have that moment in it. It was just like, she says it, he speaks, right? He makes the turn before the line. But then Elaine, my wife, who's a terrific, she's great she has a great eye for editing, she said, no, have it this way, have him consider it, it'll land a lot more strongly. And she was absolutely right. So,
And even these days, you can take an element from a shot.
Mhm.
If a hand isn't in the right position to cut properly,
Yes.
you can sometimes just mat the hand in.
Yes.
Nobody's going to notice it. You put a slight feather around it. It's not going to draw the eye, but it'll play properly.
I think
I've changed faces. I've changed eyes to look in the right direction.
Wow.
I did one thing when somebody looked at the camera, so I changed his eyes. You can
Sure.
do that now.
Wow, that's great. Well, we'll be doing a lot of work on this recording too. I'm sure you'll be, it's, I think there's a lot to do.
Only 195 pounds.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of extra hands.
She's actually here.
That's right, exactly. Well, it was so funny because Doug Jones and I were interviewed on a podcast the other night, and he was very, very gracious. But the funny thing is, we hadn't sat down for me to tell him what role he was playing, so it was very funny because he was talking about the project and how excited he is about being in it. But then it was like, well, what role are you playing, Doug? And it's like, well, I'll take that. And I just jumped in. And then that night I sent him, some material and he loves the character, and he loves what we're going to do with him. It's an amazing character. He's going to be phenomenal in the role. So it's really great. I love it.
I kind of have a question.
Sure,
Actually,
of course.
You seem to be very well connected
Mm.
in the industry.
Yeah.
You have as I mentioned earlier, a illustrious writing career
Yeah.
in genre stuff. Why is it that you're choosing to go independent with this?
Oh, just self-abuse. It's no, it's it's the question was of why am I choosing this route? And part of it is because I really love the new model that's emerging, where you can basically do it. It's a direct conversation between you and the audience, because I've been trying very hard in the interviews I've been doing to not slam the networks and studios. They are not, I mean, a lot of people out in the world think that they're just like, they kind of do a sweep at midnight of all the stupid people they can find on the street and just kind of give them network jobs. But no, that's not how it works. That's not really how it works. In reality, most of them are very, very thoughtful, very intelligent, very creative, and they love television. They love film. They're not the enemy. But the problem is that if what you want to do isn't within their business model, of course they have to serve the corporate masters. That's who's paying the bills. And so it isn't that they're the enemy, but they do have a different agenda. And if they can do quality work while serving that master, fine. But if it's going to be either or, it's clear who's going to win. It's obvious. So, so if I say, well, I want to do something that's a hopeful vision of the future, they're going to say, well, that's nice. What else you got? We got something with one of the greatest things was I was once pitching a pilot, and the network exec said to me, oh, look out, we're getting, oh no, the system breaks down.
Is there an echo?
But I remember I was pitching a pilot, and they said, well, we have something in development that's similar, but we have a great idea about a show about a telepathic turtle. It's like, go and think about that and see what you can do with it. A guy owns a telepathic turtle. And that wasn't, someone may come up with one that's great, but not me. It was like, oh, okay. What I thought in my head was, wow, if someone deliberately tried to come up with the stupidest idea possible, you know, the deadest idea, it's like, oh, okay. So, but again, it's, so to answer the question, I'm doing it because it's the most direct route I can think of to do it. And when I met Neil Johnson and he started making these movies, and they were wonderful in terms of effects and the production values, where you think they were made for millions of dollars when they were made for thousands, I saw a possibility. And you don't have the overhead. You don't need millions of dollars. You don't need that. I think mainly it's that you don't have to ask permission. You know, you just don't have to ask. You just say, we're doing it. And I think one of the first interviews I gave on Space Command, they said, well, if you make these movies. And it's like, no, it's not if, it's we are. It's how.
You know, fight to get great ideas in.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're the best editor I've ever worked with, Dave, period. On all the hundreds and hundreds of hours of network TV I've done, you're the best. You're great. And so do I need to go to the networks and find some guy who's worked at Universal forever and maybe he's a little you know, tired of the job and he's just kind of punching a clock? No. I can work with someone who's aboard because he wants to be aboard, because he likes this. And because the great thing is that everyone who's working on this is doing it for the right reason, you know, and I love that. They're coming from enthusiasm. So, you know, could I have taken this to the networks? Would they possibly have said yes? Yeah, and that was suggested to me, actually, because one of my projects is with a big A-list guy at the moment, and he said, we can walk this in, and I said, I don't want to. I mean, I would rather make it. And in the process of making it, if the networks say, we'd like to have a conversation, I'll have the conversation. But the moment they say, well, can you put a chimp in it or whatever, you know, telepathic turtle. Well, this actually might work for this. You know, actually, you know, in a spacesuit. Yes, the race of evolved turtles. So I did floating turtle. I think that would work. You know, flipping it, flying it like a frisbee. It could work. It could work.
And that actually ties into a question that we've had over the interwebs.
Yes.
Which is, for the second movie, would you let a studio pick it up?
Well, you know, again, I'm not arrogant to the point where I welcome anyone who's going to be a partner with a good heart. But you always have to look, when you're talking to the networks and the studios, you always, and production companies for that matter, you always have to look at what's the hidden agenda, what's the thing in the contract that's going to wreck it, what's the moment when the heart is pulled out of it, you know? So the issue really is one of control. For instance, when I did World Enough in Time, my deal on World Enough in Time was, I have final cut. So it was like, so I could make sure that it was what I had in mind, and I could take it to fruition with all the things I'd learned over 30 years working in television and film and get it right. Because I didn't want someone to come in at the 11th hour and say, well, you know, I don't like this thing or that thing, and it's like, oh, you just wrecked it. Why did I just spend 2 years making this? You know, so you know. So that's one of the reasons. But would if a studio wanted to release it theatrically, I'd have the conversation, sure. But again, the people I have obligation to, I have responsibility to, are you guys and you guys. You know, it's like I'm going to make it as good as I possibly can, given everything I know how to do, with this wonderful team of people, these incredibly brilliant people I'm working with, EJ. Dave, you know, but I mean, but also, you know, Doug Jones, Ian McKay, Doug Drexler, brilliant guy. Doug's amazing, and you know, he carries this gigantic brain with him. You know, it's yeah, and you know, but and Eric, I mean, everyone's been great, but the thing is, I don't need to say yes to the dumb suggestion. I don't need to say yes to the person who's going to wreck it. I say yes to the people who are going to make it wonderful, and it's that simple. And so yeah, so if a studio wants to release it, sure, fine, but not if they're going to wreck it. You know, and the one thing I want to say, I want to enlarge on that, EJ, for one thing. I mentor a lot of people in the industry, thousands of people, and I say the two most important. I say to them often, I'm going to give you the two most important words that you'll be able to use in your career. The first word is power. You need to have power over what you're making to get it done the way you want to get it done. And the second word is no. And you can say no to anyone at any point in your career. If you're just starting out, and the biggest person in the industry wants to do something with you, and it's the wrong thing, or it's going to be a nightmare, you can say no to it. You don't have to wait till you're on top of the food chain to be able to use that word. And also, you have to accept that you're not just going to have one chance. If you have the ability, if you have the passion, you'll have plenty of chances. You know, so that's how it works. So yeah. Any other questions, EJ? Anything else?
Yeah, it's actually a
Great.
different
Hi,
direction.
guys. Hi. Yeah, and so David Rakelin, our wonderful co-producer and composer, showed up, and Justin has just showed up. Justin is another one of our co-producers and one of our social media and designers and so forth. So, yeah, grab some chairs and.
You guys want to sit at the king's right hand?
Uh-oh, look out. Changing of the guard. So what was the question?
Let's
shift and let.
Great. Yeah.
I'll sit back here. You
Here we go.
Over there, you're not on camera, so you may want to scoot over.
Yeah, great. So, okay, so Justin, we'll let you sit, and I guess David, if you want to sit here or either way, whatever works, guys. Yeah, great. Thanks. Great, that's great. Yeah, exactly. That'll be great. Thanks, Eric. So, what was great. So, great. So we were just fielding.
Scoot in, man. You're all right.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this is great. So, terrific. And for those who are just new to our live feed, I'm Marc Zicree of Space Command. This is our team, our backers. We're just answering questions and telling everyone what's new and what we're doing. And again, next week is Comic-Con. And EJ, what was the question? The question you were reading?
Well, the question I was reading was, where is Space Command's head? Is it on Earth with clips of this Clipper ship?
Mm-hmm.
Is it on another star system, another planet?
Great. Good question. Good question. Basically, Space Command takes place over 2 centuries. So it's basically, when I was growing up, I was reading Heinlein, Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, Ray Bradbury, all the great science fiction writers, and watching shows like, Star Trek, of course, and Outer Limits and Twilight Zone, but also movies like Forbidden Planet. And I realized that a lot of these writers were working in a shared universe of certain assumptions of what we thought the future would be. That we would go out in space, we would colonize Mars and terraform Mars and go reach out to the outer moons and planets of our solar system, and then jump to the stars, develop faster than light drive, encounter alien races. There was this great, big, wonderful, hopeful vision of the future. And then more recently in science fiction, it's turned dark, it's turned dystopic. And so Battlestar Galactica, which is a great show, but they never even had someone have a birthday party, on that show. I mean, it's like, geez, these guys cut them a break. And Prometheus, as much as I love, the visual design of that movie, it's a very dark vision. It's like you don't particularly want to, go there and meet those big guys, So I thought there was plenty of room for a hopeful vision of the future. So basically, Space Command, which is, again, going to be told in full-length features and also half-hour stories as well. It's the story of 2 families, the Kemmer family and the Sikander family, as they're part of this great migration and exploration and journey, outward expansion of mankind. So will be some of our stories. Sometimes we'll be on Earth. Sometimes we'll be on Mars. Sometimes we build an artificial planet at one point that's the headquarters of Space Command and the United Planets, and that's called Saturn Prime. It's in orbit around Saturn, but it's an artificial planet. And then at one point in the chronology, about midpoint through the chronology, we develop a star drive, and bang, we're in other systems, and we're encountering alien races and interacting with them as well. So we basically follow several generations of these 2 families as they interact, sometimes as allies, sometimes as adversaries, through this great tapestry. But the fun part is that, like Heinlein's Future History, where he laid out a timeline and had stories taking place all along that timeline, our stories will take place along that timeline too. So our first story, our 2-hour story that I'm writing now, is set further along that timeline where we do have the starship. So at that point, Matt Kemmer's ship, the is a starship. But earlier, one of his, his great grandfather, the first version of the Paladin is a spaceship, and it's slower than light. So John Kemmer, his great grandfather, is the first commander of the original version of the Paladin. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's actually something that having read some of the stuff that I've read, has confused me, because in some of the earlier timeline you have the Paladin, and then later on you have
it's a different version of the
different
ship. So it's like the Enterprise when we had in the show, where it's the little round things and the little twirly things, and now it's now it's JJ's version where you can't look at it because it's always flaring in your face. So but it is nice to see that the Apple Store gets to go into space. That's very nice. So
I'm not the only one who noticed that.
Yeah. And by the way, if you ever watch the JJ's Star Trek movie with the extras, it's really good he cut those Klingon scenes, because putting them in those big heavy masks was just didn't fly. So okay, but go ahead. Yeah, and let's just talk for a moment about Justin and David. So They've been along for the full ride. If you see our wonderful Kickstarter page, Justin was instrumental in setting that up and getting it to work, and and David's been a solid right hand through the whole process. He started as composer. Now they're both producers on the thing because they showed that they could do stuff. So, by the way, here's a hint to everyone: when you build a team, when people show up and can do things, let them. Let them and promote them. Promote from within. But so, David, is there anything you want to say about Space Command or?
Well, sure. How about my first assignment was to envision the grand design, the entire future history, and get the core of it, the elements that would continue to be there throughout the entire series.
So you're talking about musically, yeah.
And find a way to express that in music.
Oh, good.
And very, very soon, as in this week,
Yes.
you'll hear the first fruits of that endeavor.
Yes.
And that's why I was actually a little bit late, is
Oh,
because I was putting some finishing touches on
Sure.
that for the visual effects reel. I
Yes.
think that it's not letting the cat out of the bag that we're having a new trailer that will be debuting at Comic-Con. And of course,
Yes.
all you wonderful backers will be able to get the first early look at that too. And of course, the music has to play into that because we're creating our identity even
Yes.
now. And it's all springing from Marc's grand design. If people have questions about that, I'm happy to go into answering
Sure.
Q&A. But essentially, music is the invisible character that's present in every scene, and it adds an element of reality to it. It binds you to the characters. It helps create the world. It gives us a unique identity for the entire franchise.
Cool.
And we're in the process of creating that now while the story itself is being developed. So it's collaborative in a very innovative way. Often people are brought on to a project
After the
serially,
fact, yeah.
or even after the
Yeah.
fact, to sort of try and repair the loose ends and,
Yes.
and make it all look seamless.
No.
But Marc has a much better idea of bringing collaborators on early.
Yes.
So there's a synergy, and it's not just little bits of a puzzle, but the sum really is greater than all the individual parts.
Yeah, and well, it's you have to be collaborative because the thing is, I have friends who are writers who aren't collaborative, and I advise them to become novelists, because then they can just sit in their room and they don't have to talk to anyone, and they can just work on their pallor,
Yeah.
But yeah, and
Studio Tan.
yeah, but the thing is, the reason I love film and TV is because I love working with a big team of people because there's so many great ideas and so many great suggestions, and that can come from you or from Justin or from anybody, and you hear it and it's like, oh wow, that's really cool. And even Doug and I, it's very interesting the flow of things, because I was sitting down with Doug Drexler last week and we were talking about some of the half-hour vignettes, and the first one that we're working on takes place on Earth and Mars, and Doug had an idea, and I thought it was a good idea, but then I talked to Ian, and Ian had been down that road when he was working on John Carter with an idea that they hadn't used.
John Carter of Mars.
Yes, the film, and he was a designer on that. And by the way, if you ever look at the book of The Art of John Carter of Mars, they show a lot of Ian's designs, which are so much better than what's in the movie. It's like you look at it and go, wow, those are great. But he,
Well, you
yeah.
folks are going to get Ian's sketchbook.
Yes.
For a real treat.
He's a phenomenal artist. He's amazing. But he had a suggestion that feeds into what Doug had in mind, which was a story element that I can then integrate into the script when I write it. And so it all kind of helps. It's all grist for the mill. So and part of it is because I'm very confident in my own abilities as a writer. I'm not threatened by suggestions. I welcome them because it's all like, oh, that's cool. That's something I hadn't thought about. And then it makes it bigger and better, and it's fine. So.
And of course, Marc has done this before. He's come into series and
Yes.
reinvented them.
Yes.
Taken the other ideas and expanded on them.
Yeah.
I think that
Well, that was great fun on sliders, But I'm sorry, David. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please.
Oh, no, I'm just, people, I think, get the idea that because we're making one film at a
Yeah.
time, that this is just one film, and we really need to emphasize to you guys that this is a franchise. This is
Yes.
a whole series, and we're not just saying that, we're actually
mean it.
building it.
Yeah, exactly. And Justin, is there anything you'd like to say in terms of,
Sure.
this journey?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's quite an honor to be on the ground floor of a new project that I believe will have the same appeal and the same success as projects like Star Trek and Space Patrol and Star Wars and all these great science fiction films. But I love the fact that we're looking back in time at the 1950s
Yeah.
and all the inspiration that Marc has brought to the table from the past.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's cool because my background's not in science fiction, so And going back and watching all these shows, it's like the technology that we work on to design the graphics on the Kickstarter page, that Dave uses for the video editing,
Yeah.
and that David uses for just making music and whatnot.
Mm.
It's like, it's beyond anything we saw on TV before.
Yeah, it's great.
So the fact that we're already in the future to what, the guys in the 1950s had to think, and all we got to do is get into space now, because we got the technology.
Yes. Well, there's a great thing in Forbidden Planet where he's showing him the Krell computer, and he's going 20 miles, 20 miles. Now it's 20 inches, 20 inches. So, and so, yeah, exactly, much smaller. Yeah, exactly.
And this
David,
thing
we
goes
actually-
on.
Mhm,
Let's
yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, David, we actually have a question for you.
Oh.
From one of our backers talking about how, well, he says, and I'm not sure how true this is, but over the past half century, music that's backs up to movies has played less and less of a role. And will your music actually stand on its own, or will it be to take this side seat that our backer is saying that often happens?
Well, there has been a sea change, partly brought about by technology, and how music is made for movies, television, and video games. And in some ways it's been for the better, and in some ways not. And the backer is quite accurate on that. But what's their name?
No, Kenneth Flanagan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Kenneth. Yes.
Mhm.
So basically, the music is going to have a role that's similar to the philosophy of people from the 1950s, because that's where we're looking for inspiration. Sort of like the founding fathers of the United States looked back to Greek democracy, not because they wanted to recreate Greece, but because there were some great ideas that had kind of fallen out of use and that were very applicable to the present day. And that's how we're looking at the 1950s idea, where music is a character, it's part of the story. And it's not like it's an afterthought or
Right.
something that you license from some other pop artist who happens to be successful that month.
Sure.
But if we want it to have lasting value and
Right.
stand the test of time.
But we will have "Whip My Hair" in the piece. Absolutely. I think that I think that's going to be great.
We'll feature
Yeah.
Mark on harmonica, the first
Yeah,
instrument in
exactly.
space.
And ukuleles are always great; they never fail. So yeah, is there?
Another good thing about the fact that you're at the helm and the team is very
Yeah.
tight and controlled is that as it goes on, a lot of series go on, and the films they get a little shaky
Yes.
as the sequels come in.
Yes.
If anything, this is going to get better.
Yes, yes. Well, because it's a whole tapestry, and I've worked on shows that had big arcs like Babylon 5, and I really liked what Joe did with that show, and even with Sliders, the season that we got to reinvent it on season 4, it was like, okay, let's really look at the entire season and let's have it build and let's have it go somewhere, and the trick is always to come up with something that you haven't seen before, something fresh, and for me, the idea, I'm very interested in the ripple effects of generations, from generation to generation, because that's certainly been something very powerful in my own family. And but also, another thing that appealed to me about doing that way was I really liked the notion of a story that took place in our solar system as we terraform Mars, as it's that expansion. But I also love space-going stories where you can encounter alien races and so forth. So this has the best of both, and it's just really fun. And also it allows you to have continuing characters, but also lots of new characters as well coming into the equation. So as I said, when I met Dean Haglund yesterday from X-Files, it's like, want to play? Absolutely. And so now, for those who are new to our little broadcast, Dean Haglund, who played one of the lone gunmen in X-Files, is now officially up on Space Command as one of our actors, and I'm reaching out also to James Hong, and I had a nice talk with Sybil Danning yesterday, and so you just find things that are going to work for these performers, and you look to their strengths, and it's really fun because sometimes, as I was saying earlier, sometimes you say, okay, like for instance, James Hong has such a powerful presence and such wisdom that comes across, and so you're going to play those strengths, whereas other characters you'll say, oh, well, there's something they haven't done, but I see possibility there. I see, well, even when I came up with Far Beyond the Stars, it was like, okay, let's you don't violate what the show is, but you expand the possibility of what the show is. So yeah, absolutely. And other questions?
Yeah,
or?
we actually have, and this one's quite in demand, asking, we've had like 2-3 people asking about it.
Mhm.
What is a plan for merchandising, for downloadable content,
Mhm.
and perhaps even future Kickstarter campaigns after
Yes.
this one's over? And
Glad you asked. Well, first of all, just as in terms of the Kickstarter campaign, we have one more week to go. We're going to be ending next Saturday night at midnight Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific time. So pledge, let your friends know. The higher that number gets, the faster we'll be able to do this film. The quality is going to be terrific no matter what, but it allows us to bring more people on to get it done quicker. It's going to have so many special effects. The production logistics are huge. I mean, if it wasn't, I was going to say, if it wasn't me doing this, I wouldn't trust that would be possible. But because if I was a 23-year-old newbie saying, I'm going to do Space Command, you would fall on your face so badly because you wouldn't be able to pull off what we envision. But if you look at World Enough in Time, that's what we have in mind. In terms of production logistics, that's what we have in mind. The Star Trek New Voyages episode, that level of production, even more so. But because Doug Drexler's aboard, because Ian McCaig's aboard, because we have these brilliant, brilliant technicians and special effects guys and designers aboard, we can pull this off. In terms of downloadable content, right now it's if you buy the DVD or the Blu-ray, you get a downloadable version. So that's the model right now. I don't know if you want to address any more of that, David.
Well, just looping back for a moment.
Sure.
Money really does help. There are hard costs that we can find ways to work around. Like,
Yes.
for instance, we can make a small set look large, and it'll still be impressive to
Yes, we
But
cast
all-
little people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it'll just be that much better if we can actually build the
Just
large
in the
set.
background.
So that's sort of what it comes down to.
Yes.
Is that we aren't going to give you something any less because we don't get paid less. It's that we'll get
Yeah.
more on screen
Right.
and more in the reality. And it won't be so much about trying to find creative ways to do more with less, but more just about finding creative ways to make a better film.
Yes.
And that's maybe a subtle distinction, but I think it makes all the difference in the world when you know that, yes, we can do this. We don't have to figure out how we're going to do it because we know how.
Mhm.
If we have the resources, if we have the size team, we can actually say we can get this film done
Mhm.
in this amount of time
Yes.
with this level of quality.
Right.
And we don't have to invent a new way of making a movie. We
Yeah.
will if we have to.
Well.
But if you give us just that little bit extra backing,
Mhm.
then we can go with things that we know will work, and that will make our life easier.
Yes.
And, please make our life easier.
But this is
Post it on Facebook.
Yeah. Tell friends. Yeah, absolutely.
Join
And
the cadets.
yes, and again, the one thing that's wonderful, and one of the things I've deliberately been doing with Space Command, because I love all of these wonderful shows like Deep Space Nine and X-Files and Buffy and all these great shows. I've been reaching out to actors and others from those shows, or Battlestar Galactica with Doug Drexler, and the Star Wars world with Ian McCaig, and we're also probably going to be reaching out to some of the Star Wars actors as well. And so, because we love these people and we love the work they do, and we want them to be part of this journey. So in terms of whether there'll be more Kickstarter campaigns, yes, ongoingly, in terms of funding the half hours, in terms of funding the other features, yes. We want to, because it like a TV show, it's a continual process of funding them and shooting them and making them and getting them out there. But now we have, this campaign is for the first film, and then beyond that, we're laying out our plans. But we're doing well. We're very pleased. I'd never raised money before. This is the first time I've done a Kickstarter campaign, and I'm very gratified that people have stepped up. I'm grateful to everyone who's helped in every way.
Pretty
Yeah.
amazing for a first-timer, huh?
Yeah, pretty great. So
Mark,
yeah,
on the funding issue,
Yes.
I have an individual who is anxious to fund his name on the side of the spaceship engines.
great. Yes,
Cool.
yes.
His name is Ed Escuderian. He's a very close friend of mine. He makes racing camshafts and has for
That's great.
60 years.
Well, that name would
I just
fit.
need to know how
Yes.
much and which way to be pointed.
If we have that, if you go to spacecommandmovie.com, which takes you to our Kickstarter page, there's the list of rewards, and that's one of the rewards. And so if
Okay.
he just reads down to that reward, it'll say how much he has to pledge. And then also on our website, you can click through to our website via the Kickstarter page, and there's actually even higher levels where you can pledge if you want to.
That's pledgespacecommand.com.
PledgeSpaceCommand.com takes you directly to that. But because we're grateful for whatever anyone pledges, but obviously if they want to pledge more, that's great. We love that. It helps
Well,
make
he
it.
sounded quite excited about the project.
That's great.
And he's a little long in years now. He's been around a long time. But,
That's great.
He was anxious to have the Iscadarian name on the side of the plasma engines.
That's great. That's great. Well,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely, and we'll.
It'll be there, and the fact that he's contributing will actually get it there faster, so.
Yes.
it'll be there.
Yeah,
I can
and
answer part of the question.
of
about
course,
the
Justin.
merchandising and
Yes,
whatnot.
sure.
To answer your question about merchandising, a lot of times these films, when they go out, they have millions and millions of dollars of budget. In our case, ours isn't that high, and it's all going to the movie. But as we continue to build success, and as we continue to have greater and greater following, that'll give us more leverage in terms of licensing
Yes.
and things like that, and working with toy companies and so on and so forth to really get the Space Command name and brand and merchandise out there.
Yes.
And you know, once again, if you look at Star Trek, Star Wars, all the toys, all the cool stuff.
Yes.
One thing that got me excited about this project was Space Patrol.
Yeah.
And I think they had it was like the Oscar Mayer Wiener car, but it was
Well,
a spaceship car.
that's
And
right.
It was just awesome. And
Yeah.
I know I'm really excited to get to the point where
Well, we'd have all that. Yes.
we have all that.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
love the fact that you're going for the bubble helmets.
I know, those are great. The, well,
Amazing.
it's fun because, I mean, every time I see, well, anytime I see any of the concept art or any of this stuff, it's just amazing. And of course, yes, figurines, all that stuff, model kits, you name it. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, if I weren't making Space Command, I'd be the first in line to buy that stuff, you know? It's just, you know, of course. And it's great fun.
Oh, we should mention that also that there's new, fresh talent that's being brought aboard. We have over 3,500 submissions for new people and established people to play
Those-
roles that
wow.
have not yet been cast.
Wow.
So that's going to be an ongoing feature here.
Yes.
Yes, you're going to see familiar faces, but
Sure.
you're also going to see fresh talent.
Yes.
People that will be given their first chance to shine
Yes.
in Space Command.
Well-
and I think that's part of our mission.
And I want to address that because it's very funny because, you know, I came up with this idea for the talent search because many of our lead roles are being played by people like Armin Shimmerman and Ethan Phillips and you know, Dean Haglund and on, all these great science fiction actors, Doug Jones. But I left the two of the lead characters, Commander Matt Kemmer, who's commander of the Paladin in the first 2-hour movie, and Cadet Bradbury, and I named that after my dear friend Ray Bradbury before his recent passing, because he and I were good friends, terrific friends for the last 15 years. He was a wonderful mentor. But, and Cadet Bradbury can be played by a man or a woman. It's the youngest member of the crew. And, but I came up with that idea, and it was funny because when I first announced it, people thought, well, is it for real? You know, and they were saying, well, how good could an actor be who's coming over the transom through a talent search? But then Dave and
I
I,
think it'd be great.
well, the fun part was that Dave and I recorded a video, which some of you may have seen, addressing that. Because again, when I did World Enough in Time, I initially cast as Sulu's daughter, Alana, the lead female role, an actress who had played the lead on a big science fiction show. And 4 weeks before we were going to shoot, she told me she had to have surgery, she had to drop out, and I'd been building this production for 6 months, and we were going to be shooting in 4 days in New York, 4 weeks in New York. And Elaine, who's wiser than I am, my wife, said, don't worry, someone better will come through that door, we'll have auditions. And an actress who'd never done film or TV, had only done stage in New York, came in and she auditioned, and it was Christina Moses, and she was the most brilliant actress I've ever worked with my entire career. And then J.J. Abrams put her on a talent deal after, you know, he saw her, you know, do this. And
Slightly gorgeous.
she's amazing, and she's one of our female leads in Space Command. And so,
Did she
you know,
walk in on her own or somebody sent her?
the funny thing is, she heard of it through a friend of a friend, and the person who recommended her who told her about it was Zach Gruber, who's the writer for the Huffington Post, who just did the piece on Space Command for the Huffington Post. So it all connects in those wonderful ways of the extended family. So are there other questions, EJ?
Yeah, actually, we had one very interesting one talking about when will the story take place? When does that 200-year arc begin? How far into the future?
It's not far after our present era. So, you know, I haven't nailed down the specific year yet, but it's basically when, you know, the Space Command is actually the military arm of the Air Force, which, you know, and they've actually reached out to us, they want to help us, which is great.
The real world.
Yes, and we met with several of their officers. They will not have story approval, they will not have script approval, we made that clear, but they want to help us in terms of resources and all sorts of stuff, so that we have to go through an approval process, but I don't foresee that as being very difficult, given what we're doing. But in terms of when it's set, it's set when the Space Command is basically, we're starting to terraform Mars, people are starting to colonize Mars, manned exploration is moving out into the solar system slower than light. It's that expansion of people going out. We have asteroid mining, so it's some decades after our own time, but not hundreds or thousands of years. So Yeah.
So like late 21st century.
I think so, yeah, something like that, yeah. And but I haven't nailed down a specific year yet because, again, I'm still fleshing out a lot of those specifics and learning as I go. So yeah, and we're doing motion tests for the Cerberons, and there's a lot of we're actually, it's fun because we're actually doing design elements all along that time span. So Ian's designing a lot of our characters for the first movie. That takes place further along the time span, and then there's the Cerberons, these aliens that we sort of meet halfway through. And we're doing motion tests of those creatures. And so it's really fun working through. And then, of course, Doug's working on the earlier stage where we've got the first incarnation of the Paladin and the spacesuits and so forth. But Doug and I have talked about how those designs will evolve as over the decades, over the time frame. So they'll vary also. There'll be subtle changes.
So it won't be like Star Trek where they do one movie and the costumes are that, and then 5
Totally
years
different.
later, it's completely
That's
different.
right, exactly. That's very funny. But yeah, exactly. So
Well, things will change, but they'll change in ways that make sense. So
Yes.
That make sense to us.
Yes.
Hopefully to you too.
It'll
Yeah.
be like the same production team.
yes, and everyone's talking and working together, and so we're all and the fascinating thing is that when first campaign finishes, then we'll see, okay, how much have we raised, and then we'll start allocating that for production, because we're going to be basically doing the first 2-hour movie and the first half-hour vignette simultaneously, essentially. So that's why we're in active pre-production on both of those. And I've started outlining the first half-hour vignette, and I've written most of the 2-hour script, and I've outlined the second film and the third film, and I know what the fourth film is going to be, and I'm writing that with Michael Reeves, who I wrote World Enough in Time with. So
Michael is a brilliant writer and a great guy.
yes, he is, and he and I have been friends since we met in Theodore Sturgeon's writing class when I was in college. So yeah.
If you guys don't know who Theodore Sturgeon is, you should check him out.
Yeah.
Amazing writer.
Took a writing class with Theodore Sturgeon?
Yes.
That explains a lot.
And well, Ted, see, the funny thing is the three shows that made me want to be a writer were Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and Star Trek, the original versions of those shows. And so I was dying to meet those writers, David Gerrold, Dorothy Fontana, Harlan Ellison, Ted Sturgeon. Ted Sturgeon wrote Amok Time and Shore Leave for the original Star Trek, and he was also a brilliant novelist and short story writer. And I was an undergrad at UCLA. I was an art student, and I saw that Theodore Sturgeon was going to be teaching an adult education class, and I was forbidden as an undergrad to take that class, but I wasn't going to miss that opportunity, so I just signed up for it. And Ted was teaching it, and he became one of my first mentors when I was 19 years old. And Michael Reeves was his teaching assistant. And Michael had just started selling his first short stories and started writing for TV. And we became very good friends. And Michael's the one who brought me into television initially. He was writing for a show called Space Stars that had Space Ghost as the main character. And that was my first TV credit for that show. And then I wrote Smurfs and on and on. So yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Amazing career.
Fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have actually one for David.
Okay.
When will the music be available? Is that something that we can download off the site, or?
Music is going to be available soon. And
Good.
by soon, I mean this week.
Oh, great.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Great. Terrific.
So don't tell anyone.
That's great.
Circling back just for a moment about when things are going to happen in the timeline.
Yes.
Something that has appeared in our Facebook blogs, which are very in-depth and which we'll archive on the Space Command movie website that will be going live later this week with
Yes.
much more in-depth content. The evolution of technology and visual effects is closely tied to the evolution of the time period that you can show in the movie. I don't know if I'm saying that the right way, but as our technology gets better at making visual effects, we can show more far-out things and more far-out futures.
Yes.
So whenever there's an invention or a breakthrough or just an improvement in how visual effects are generated, that opens up new story possibilities
Yes.
we can visualize.
Yes.
And one of the things that we can do with a little bit more budget is that we can have our own tools created that no one else has available, so that we can create new worlds that no one has ever been able to create before.
Well, the frame is very malleable. That's something I learned on World Enough in Time, and that you can really. It's funny. Yesterday I was speaking at PopCon, which was this convention, and it was a thing on screenwriting. And someone asked me how, when you write a script, how expensive is it to make? And I said, well, it depends on who your friends are, And if you have brilliant friends, it solves a lot of problems. And it doesn't mean. I mean, look, the Space Command is going to be incredibly difficult to make. It's going to be really hard pushing that big rock up the mountain, but I've done that many a time in my career, and I've done a lot of things that people said were absolutely impossible, and then I pulled them off. And so I see the challenge ahead, but I welcome that challenge, but I know that that challenge is impossible to do alone. And so I'm so grateful to the people who are helping. When I did World Enough in Time, if you ever read those credits, which go on for a while, 400 people worked on that with me, and I needed all those people. And so that's why with Space Command we're going to be having a lot of people who can help. And it's, I always say it's like that line in Aliens where Ripley says, is there anything I can do? And they say, well, I don't know, is there anything you can do? And she says, well, I can work that loader, and it's like, well, yes. So anytime if anyone in addition to being a backer, if there are skills you have, if you want to offer to help, we welcome it, because it's going to be quite a journey, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but also a lot of fun, and we're just thrilled to be part of this. So another question?
I believe Justin had it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this on the way over here.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
curious
good.
from a writing perspective,
Mhm.
how do you account for the language barrier in science fiction between aliens and humans and
Well,
all that stuff?
it's interesting because it's an interesting question. There's a character that Ethan Phillips is playing. His name is Alton Fenulus, and he's an alien and a shapeshifter and a munitions expert, which is an interesting little skill set, and a pessimist. He comes from a race of pessimists. I think of them as like little Jewish guys, and because I come from a family of little Jewish guys, and yeah, with guns, they can blow stuff up. But he'll be speaking English, but he comes from a culture that their native language is a different language, but he's learned to speak our language. But the Cerberons don't even have vocal apparatus. These creatures, these aliens who are extremely alien. And one of the things we've been talking about is they might communicate by changing patterns on their body, like some of the sea creatures, like octopi, where they can change patterning. And that might be their method of translating. And so in that case, they don't really speak. You learn their visual language, and there's a way that's translated, but it's not just, everyone in space speaks English,
Right.
but you do have to come up with those things, and you think creatively. And one trick with science fiction is you want to make it clear to the audience what you're doing, but you also want to come up with new ways of doing things too within the stories. And so that's an interesting challenge, but one I welcome. And again, I think it's clear when we're talking about Space Command that a lot of what the story is going to be and who the characters are going to be, I've already worked out, and I know where the story goes, and I know how the chronology works, but some of the details we're still learning as we go, and that's part of the fun of it. Because if you're not open to the creative process as you continue, you miss wonderful opportunities. So yeah.
I was going to mention, David's music isn't just going to be synthesizer stuff.
No,
It's
no.
not a cassette.
No, we're gonna have a tuba player.
You're going to have
Yeah, just wait till you hear that tuba. It's gonna be great.
We're throwing a banjo at a tuba. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and bagpipes. Yeah, xylophone.
orchestra.
You got a pretty mouth.
Everyone should have the opportunity to hear a live symphony orchestra
Yes.
creating the music for a movie in the studio. This is something that is a transcendental experience. Everybody who works on movies and TV shows wants to at least get to one of the recording sessions so they can see what it looks like when they're up on the screen and
Yes.
there's a huge army of the best virtuoso musicians in the world creating all this emotion and intensity and sense of importance.
Yes.
Because when there's 100 people all beaming music right at you,
Mm-hmm.
it feels good.
Which is another thing that more funding brings us.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Pledge. Yeah.
Pledge, baby, pledge.
SpaceCommandMovie.com. Yeah.
We'll also be making a documentary of the recording session. For those of you who are Star Wars fans, one of the holy grails is that there's actually a BBC documentary of John Williams conducting the London Symphony Orchestra
Wow.
in the Star Wars overture, the theme that everybody in the world has heard
Mm-hmm.
for the very first time. And wouldn't you like to have been there? Well, this is a chance for you to be part of that.
Great. And there was a question?
Yeah, the quickest way to show that music does in fact make the film is to go into an exciting video
Mm-hmm.
and mute the sound.
Yes.
And see the difference.
Well, the funniest thing was when I was story editing Friday the 13th, the series, which was a horror show, and you'd watch the rough cuts without the music. It's like the guy goes in the kitchen, then he wanders around, then he goes in the hallway, then he goes into the bedroom, and it's like boring. But then you put the scary music on, it's like, and it's like, oh, what's going to happen? It's this is so scary. But it's,
Because
so
music is conveying a hidden
yes,
meaning,
that's right.
and that's very important.
That's right.
Because if the actor were to stop and explain what he was doing to the camera, it would spoil the fun. So
Yes.
you need a way to do that, and music does it almost by telepathy.
Yeah. Is there another question, EJ?
I got a question.
Oh yeah, please. Yes.
You mentioned a moment ago about having friends in the industry and that
Yes.
enabling you to do what you're doing.
Yes.
I remember reading near the end of Star Trek Next Generation that it was about $1 million an episode, and that was
Much more. It was when I was writing for DS9, it was $2 million per episode. Now the standard cost for an hour of TV drama is $2 to $5 million, and Terra Nova was $20 million an episode. Yeah.
So my question is,
Catering bill.
Knowing that that it costs that much to do a studio TV show.
Yes.
How is it that you're able to do? I mean, if you
How am I
could-
able
you
to
could
pull
give,
this-
like,
yeah.
an actual
Of course.
example of how you're able to circumvent those numbers.
I will.
Deferred payments.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. And shared uniforms. Well, no, it's the real way is, first of all, you have to be doing it for the love of it, and you have to be willing. I mean, look, if Space Command becomes this huge franchise and money pours down from the heavens, lovely. But is that why I'm doing it? Is that no, it's not. And if Space Command does not make me a penny, it's like if it comes out and it's wonderful and it stands the test of time and people are talking about it 20 or 30 years from now, there are things that I literally, in my career, there are things I did 30 years ago, like writing The Twilight Zone Companion, where people still love it and people are still talking about it. And that's my goal with this. That's my goal with this, because the reason I write is to create something that won't just be momentarily adequate. And so knowing that, then it becomes like an independent film model where you say, okay, how do we do this? And how does this work? And that's why I'm very, very, very fascinated by special effects. And I read, there's a magazine called Cinefex that's about special effects, and I read that, and I always watch all of the making of videos on DVDs where it's like, okay, how did they pull this off? And with Doug Drexler, when he showed me Blood and Chrome, which is the Galactica prequel that hasn't come out yet, which was shot entirely on green screen, he was like, okay, let's walk through this and see how this was done. And we're not shooting all on green screen because there's a mix where you can have practicals, what are called practicals, those are real sets, those are real physical objects that you make, and green screen. It's going to be a marriage of those two things. And but so the way you do it is you sit down as soon as we know exactly what money we have. Once the Kickstarter campaign is done, we'll say, okay, this is how much money we actually have. This is the real number. Okay, that's when we sit down and say, okay, this is what we have to make this. And then we just sit down with the two scripts, because the first step will be I'll finish the 2-hour script, which is almost done now. I just took time off from writing it to do the Kickstarter campaign, so I'll finish the script. And actually, some of our actors have, and Neil Johnson, some of the people on our team have actually read that script, because I needed to be like Ian McCaig. He had to know what he was going to draw. But we'll sit down with the 2-hour script and the half-hour script, the vignette, which is called Shakedown. That's the title of it, and it's because the Shakedown cruise of the Paladin going from Earth to Mars. We'll sit down with Doug and with our department heads, and we'll really say, okay, and Neil Johnson, and say, okay, how scene by scene we break it down. It's like, how do we do this? How do we pull this off? How are we planning this? Something I should mention, by the way, is because we got enough money in the Kickstarter campaign. It was very funny. Originally, Neil Johnson was going to direct the first 2-hour story, and because it was originally going to be $50,000, it was like, you do the first one. That's the one that gets the bugs out. And Neil is a master at low-budget production. But we got to a certain point in our campaign where Neil said, "Would you like to direct the first one?" I said, "Sure, as long as you backstop me, as long as I don't step on a landmine." But so now I'm going to direct it. I'm directing the first one, because with World, and if you want to get a sense of my directorial chops, watch World Enough in Time, because I directed that and got nominated for the Hugo and the Nebula. So because the thing I love, the reason I want to direct it is because I can find the emotional moments. I can find those moments where you really are moved by the characters. Because the thing about Space Command, although it's spaceships and aliens and androids and robots and all the stuff we love, it's about characters. It's the human story. It's about love and sacrifice and all the things that make our lives, all of our lives, worth living. And unless those characters come alive, unless we're taking that emotional journey with them, there's no reason to do this project. And so I'll be sitting down with my team, and we'll storyboard the entire thing to a fare thee well. I mean, I draw what I call my little Snoopy-grams, where they look like Charles Schultz drawings. That's how I storyboard. But if I have to draw, I mean, if I have to really draw, I can, because I have I have 4 years of art school. My degree is in painting, sculpture, and graphic arts. If anyone is on the Facebook page, I think I posted one of my paintings that I did when I was a kid. But yeah, so but the point is, the first step is really we roll up our sleeves and we get into the trenches and we really say, okay, this is how we do this thing. And then we lay out we lay out our shooting schedule and off we go. And there's going to be curveballs. There's going to be moments where you go, well, okay, this was not what we expected. How do we solve this problem? It was very funny in World Enough in Time. I knew, because it was the first thing I directed since college, I knew in World Enough in Time that there was going to be a moment when the bear would eat me, where there would just be a moment where I would not get the shot I needed, or there'd be something I screwed up. And so there was a shot in the climactic scene where I won't spoil the episode, but there's a scene between Sulu and his daughter in the transport room where a big decision is made, and it's incredibly moving. And Sulu is supposed to be looking this way, and he's looking this way, and it's like, oh my God, what do I do there? Now, if he was, and he's barbarian Sulu, so he's like in leather and sword and the long hair. Because if it was just regular Sulu, you just flip the shot and his eye line would be correct. But his hair is asymmetrical. He parts it on one side, and it's long hair, so you can't just flip it because it would be obvious what you've done, because you're going between a master shot and so forth. So what I had to do with that shot was we flipped the shot, and then one of our special effects people, Aurora, who was working on Battlestar Galactica, she then had to flip his hair back and match move it for several shots, and that was a monster. But that was again, you say, okay, what's the solution here? And initially we just tried to move his eyes like you were talking about, but then it was like, he's looking this way and his eyes are that way. It's like, no, it's not. Nope, doesn't work. But but that's the thing. So the real answer is, because we've worked in low budget and because we've done high quality for a low budget, because it's like you bring every single thing you know how to do. And that's where you really have to love it, because if you don't love it, you're going to be gone very quickly, because you have to really put everything you have on the line, and that's how it works. So yeah.
There's never going to be nothing like this has ever happened before.
No, we're blazing a trail, and I'm proud of that, because, but it's thanks to all of you guys. I mean, if I was sitting here alone and no one had put a penny on Kickstarter, I mean, many of my friends who had tried Kickstarter campaigns have failed, and I'm very proud of the fact that we've succeeded, that we're up to $170-something thousand, and I think we'll do even better over the next week, because we'll be at Comic-Con, and you'll all be calling your wealthy uncles and having them put in money. We can have a fleet of spaceships with names on them, and but yeah, and people can be in death scenes, and people can have walk-on roles, and people can get spacesuit props and all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's lots of wonderful rewards, but the art book, there's plenty of stuff. But the point is, because of all of you and because of everyone sitting here, and this is why it's happening. And it will be something remarkable. And the world is paying attention. It's funny. People are hearing about Space Command who I have not reached out to, who none of us have reached out directly to. There's a ripple effect. Neil Johnson's in England, and he went with an effects company the other day, and they had heard about Space Command. They were excited about it. Or when I talked to Dean Haglund about it, he'd heard about it. The buzz is out there. The word is out there. And with Brandon Braga saying, he's thrilled. All these guys, J.J. Abrams and Guillermo, they're all, and it's funny because it's going to be a lot of fun to go to Comic-Con and just walk Comic-Con and have people talking to me about Space Command. I'm very excited about that, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be amazing. Yeah.
I'm still working with Mark Gibbs trying to get that meeting together so he can do an article for Forbes magazine.
Great.
I had lunch with him last week, and his schedule has just been crazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I hope it happens before the end of the Kickstarter campaign.
I hope so. I mean, but again, as I say, we'll be having other campaigns to raise money for the further adventures, and so because I have faith. In a way, it's almost like a pay TV model. It's like and this is the thing that Doug and I said in one of the videos, which is, everyone bitches about, the shows we want to see aren't on the air, or they canceled the show we loved, or they wrecked it. It's like, this is a chance to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's like, if you fund this, it will be made. If you don't fund it, I mean, down the road, if we get a head of steam up, then we may have other people come in to help us, or we may be able to have a merchandising model, as you were talking about, Justin. There'll be other revenue streams, and that's fine. But right now, if it doesn't get funded by all of us, one way or another, through sweat equity or through cash, both, it ain't going to happen. But when it happens, the lovely part is, I constantly talk about the need for authenticity, that authenticity shines through. And everything I've said throughout this entire campaign, I absolutely mean. When I say this is going to be wonderful, it will be. It will be. It already is. And, you know, and I can't wait for the next day and the next month and to see when we're done with this first one and onward into the future. So I guess, how are we for time? Are we
Well, we're at 1:10.
1:10?
1 hour, 10 minutes.
Okay, so
Gone,
maybe,
going for-
maybe one more question, or is there something you want to say, David?
Yes, I love Space Command. We love all of you. I have another meeting I have to go to.
So maybe one more
Yeah.
question, and then we'll say adieu.
Later, David.
Yeah, bye, David.
Hi, David.
Well, we did have one interesting question.
Yes.
Well, I had several, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with, are we going to be using practicals for the ships, or is it all going to be CGI?
It's an interesting question. The question was if we're using practicals for the ship or CGI. We'll be using CGI for a good deal of it, but they're building a model, as you know, a very high quality model, and I think it'd be fun to have some model shots as well, to do it old school. But this is where Doug Drexler, you know, he's heading up our effects team, our design team, and I will bow to his expertise. My goal, because for one thing, frankly, I don't, you know, it's like we're using the whole bag of tricks. And if it works one way, fine. If it works another way, fine. As long as it looks great when you see it at the end of the journey, that's fine with me. So yeah, absolutely. And do we have a number of other questions, or where are we with that? Because if we can take maybe another minute or two.
What we had,
Let me just say this while you're looking at it.
Sure, of course.
$27.
Mm-hmm.
You get the movie, you get
Yeah.
I don't want this to turn into a telethon, but you get the movie, you get the sound,
Yes.
you get the soundtrack, you get a bunch more.
Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to sing Danny Boy. I'm going to sing Danny Boy. That's it. That's it.
What's our total?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the,
That's right. Well, the great part is that you can get some great stuff for a little money, or you can pledge $10,000 or more. You know, the Kickstarter, you can go up to $10,000. If you go to pledgespacecommand.com, you can pledge all the way up to $500,000. If you want $500,000, you get a real trip into space and a preview of this in your hometown, where we come in person and show it. And so that's a real trip into space via not us, but like some of the companies that are providing that now. For $250,000, you get the entire spaceship set on a flatbed truck. Pretty cool. And that's a callback to Space Patrol. In the 50s, Space Patrol actually had a contest where you won a 35-foot-long spaceship. So, but yeah, was there a question?
Another thing real quick
Yeah,
that's
sure.
important to note is that we got a lot of rewards on there, and a lot of those, the majority of those rewards say all of the above. So
Yes,
right.
you get everything below for the
Yeah.
most part.
That's
too,
really
which
cool.
is really
that's cool. So yes, so is there a question, EJ?
Big boxes.
Yes,
What?
big boxes.
yeah, there's another one talking about the design of the planets, and do you have anything in mind yet on,
Yes.
you know, is it all going to look like the desert in Southern California,
No.
like Firefly, or?
No, no. No, we're going to have it. It'll be a wide variety of planetscapes, both from space and also when you're on the surface. And again, this is our design team, and where we just create stuff that looks really great. And again, it's a collaboration between me and Doug Drexler, and you know, Ian, and everyone who's stepping up to do the job. So the main thing is we want it to look good and solid. You know, so yeah. But there's a lot of different worlds, a lot of alien planets. There's the planets in our solar system. In the one I'm writing now, you see a lot of the worlds of our solar system, but you also see other planets too. So yeah. Anything else? Maybe I want to make sure everyone gets the information they need.
I think we're doing good.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think on that note, I want to thank everyone here and all of you, our wonderful team. And next week we'll be at Comic-Con, so there'll be live streams. We'll put out the word about Comic-Con. And feel free to reach out to us via spacecommandmovie.com, and our Facebook page is Space Command Movie, I guess. Yeah.
Facebook.com/Space Command Movie.
Yeah, there you go. And we're on Twitter, and just seek us out, and we're happy to meet you in person or via the internet. And thanks again for everything you're doing, as you're making it happen. Right. Cool.
Thank you.
Yay.
And